The Alumni Association has served the interests of UMass Amherst and its alumni for 141 years. Through communications, alumni networks, volunteer programs, and a year-long calendar of events, the Alumni Association supports high-profile initiatives.
This particular state to be the flagship campus of the Commonwealth is a responsibility of achieving quality and accessibility at a level that we take extremely seriously on the campus. The individuals whom we recognize today have distinguished themselves in their respective fields. Through their accomplishments and contributions to society, they help propel our proud intellectual engine and bring honor to this university.
Many don't know, but my mother actually graduated from UMass. She was part of one of the unique programs back in the early 70s where UMass would fly faculty down to Brooklyn, New York, train them and fly back in order to educate the paraprofessionals. And so I fell in love with UMass at my mother's graduation. Who would have known that in a time back in the early 80s when there wasn't computers and sophisticated science attached to biology, that I would end up into a field that required computation, statistics, and the like. And so, as the Chancellor just pointed out, it's very important and amazing how the university keeps pushing out graduates in the STEM field.
I was fortunate to receive an education that ignited my intellectual spirit and the passion that would keep me going for many years. I was recruited back to campus as an assistant professor a year after graduating, and I spent 25 wonderful years at UMass continuing to learn, to teach, to be an academic and a scholar, as well as to struggle against the typical issues one encounters in large institutions: the bureaucracy, the constant reorganizations, the cutbacks, and other obstacles, but so grateful to be working at a place that had always, even from the beginning when I arrived in 1975, made it clear that it stood for social justice and diversity. These commitments are important because although not always put into practice, they at least give us articulated values from which it is difficult to escape, and a goal toward which to work.
At UMass, my professors were inspiring and challenging. I began to have conversations that challenged my perspective on life. What I loved about studying sociology was the ability to explore and understand the impact of racism, stigmatism, stereotyping, and the concept of creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. This helped create a foundation for my future studies and my life work. As a homeless coordinator, my job is to identify homeless students and remove all educational barriers so they can be enrolled in public school. In my studies at UMass, I was taught not just to accept the status quo, but also and implement the current policies, but to also analyze, study, and research to find new ways to make a difference in the areas of our society that are most needed. That is what I am committed to doing.
My experience shows that it is possible for our state educational system to take an underprivileged immigrant kid like myself and provide him with the means to get an education and be a productive and successful person in the community. A kid with no English and limited resources who came from the Dominican Republic in December of 1981 to the poor immigrant city of Lawrence, where he graduated from high school. Unfortunately, my story is an exception and not a rule for too many inner city children. Too many inner city kids, especially immigrants, don't even get a chance to pursue a higher education nowadays in our state.
I want to thank my students in Springfield for their ability to overcome any obstacle to become the greatest musicians, the greatest role models, and the greatest leaders in the region, even though people kept saying it would be impossible for Springfield students to be great at anything, and we proved them wrong. My final thank you is to the late George Parks, my mentor and inspiration, and he's the former director of the University of Massachusetts Minuteman Marching Band, the power and class of New England. And Mr. Parks said two things that I'll always remember. The first thing he said, being in a band is the greatest thing you can ever do, and don't let anybody tell you any differently. And you know what? I believed him. The second thing he said, And he would always say this: make the most of every minute and make the most of every day. Make the most of every minute and make the most of every day. I believed those words as a student. Every day was important. UMass is where I found my faith in God. UMass is where I found my passion for music. UMass is where I found my calling to be a teacher. UMass is where I found my wife, Elise. I love UMass. And I still believe his words now.
Before UMass, I had only attended and worked at private institutions. UMass Amherst students surprised me by giving me a very deep reverence for the unique power that is held by a public university. I worked with hundreds of students in my classes and in my lab over the years. I heard again and again from those students that UMass fundamentally changed their vision of the world. It changed how they saw themselves in their community and in their country, and it rewrote the parts that they wanted to play in their future. For the past dozen years, I've worked in roles with the mission of advancing faculty success at UMass, so I know a lot of faculty. And here's a surprise. UMass Amherst faculty are a lot more famous than you think. UMass Amherst faculty are truly world leaders. They are renowned for their research discoveries and their teaching methods.
I thank all of you for attending this prestigious event and for your continued support of the Alumni Association of UMass Amherst. Does anyone have an air horn here? We can say, all right. Congratulations. Congratulations to all of our distinguished alumni. Thank you all for coming out today, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you.